I just want to stress from the outset really that this is a launch event rather than a tailored father inclusive practice training event. But nevertheless, in the next hour and a half, our plan is to share the rationale for co-creating this new father inclusive toolkit, which has been developed by the young fathers of the North East Young Dads and Lads in collaboration with a team of advisors, including academics and also professional champions of father inclusive practice. You'll hear from Kevin and Doug, who are the main staff at North East Young Dads and Lads and are really at the forefront of support for young fathers. You'll also hear from Robert and Jordan, who are two of the young fathers who've done so much to develop the content for the toolkit in order to promote young fathers' stories and showcase just how incredible young dads really are. I'll also provide a brief overview of the toolkit and describe some of the content it includes, and that includes some work we've done on our own to develop an up-to-date understanding and working definition of father inclusive practice. And one thing that I've certainly observed in my own research and in my own work is that we use the language and we use the concept of father inclusion a lot, but I don't know if we've necessarily theorised that properly or developed a cogent understanding of what that means and how it can be implemented. The toolkit is very much the first step in that journey for us in terms of exploring what that means, but also from multiple perspectives. So from the perspectives of young dads and dads themselves, from professionals who are in the field, who are delivering support, and also from academic literature and research. We also note that from the outset of the webinar that the launch of the toolkit today is very much the first part of a longer term project, and it's a work in progress. So this is a chapter 1, if you will, and later in the webinar we're keen to, can I just ask you to turn your microphones off, please? Thank you. We're keen to explore with you how we can further develop the toolkit, including some of the themes you think it might include and that we might develop longer term. We already have some additional work in progress. We'll just make you aware of that as well. And that focuses on support around perinatal mental health. But do keep in mind that we'll be thinking back on that as we go through the webinar. So that's just a bit of a broad introduction to the plan for today. Before we get into the webinar fully, I just want to provide another little bit of brief context to today's webinar. So this is the second of a monthly series of webinars that the Following Your Fathers Further team are running in 2023 to promote the findings and outcomes of the Following Your Fathers Further study. So it's a 4-year study that began in January 2020. And we're also really keen to use this space to start to build networks of professionals and scholars with a commitment to promoting family wellbeing, engagement with fathers, and also developing reflexive and compassionate approaches in our professional lives, whether that involves research and practice. I'm just going to admit some more people. There we go. So each webinar covered a different theme, and again, it includes professionals and academic speakers with expertise around debates that are relevant to young fatherhood, but also fatherhood in general. And we expect all of this to culminate in an end of project conference in December 2023. So please do watch this space for more information, and please do follow the project on Twitter to learn more about our various activities if you're not already. Before handing over to the North East Young Dads and Lads to say a bit more about the toolkit, I just wanted to say something very quickly about our work as a research team with the charity. And again, for those who don't know, the research team includes myself, Dr. Laura Way and Dr. Lindsay Ladlow, who are both here today, and also our administrator, Ben Handysides. Now, our partnership with the North East Young Dads and Lads was one that's evolved since around June 2020. We weren't that long into the pandemic at that point, but I saw Kev speaking on the BBC about North East Young Dads and Lads, and I approached him at that point to explore the possibilities of doing some co-creation work with the dads and also with the charity as well. The Following Your Fathers Further study, as I mentioned, has a participatory ethos. And again, we're really keen to promote the voices of young fathers as experts by experience. And that's always been a central thread of our work and a key role in the generation of new knowledge as well about their parenting journeys. We've also done some exciting work to include them in the dissemination of our work as well. And this webinar is an exemplar of that, providing an opportunity and a space to hear from young dads themselves. In the past 3 years, we've had the pleasure of supporting some of the beneficiaries of North East Young Dads and Lads who have since become employees of the charity to conduct peer research. So facilitating opportunities for them to address pressing practice issues. The Diverse Dads project, which we have here on the screen, the logo of, is just one example of the research they've done with our support, where we've sought to understand and address the underrepresentation of minoritised young fathers in outreach and support. We've also worked together to co-create resources and even to co-create an output in an academic journal. The Father Inclusive Toolkit that we're launching today is the next step in what's become an incredibly productive part, one we really enjoy working with you. So that's a bit of context to us and the relationship and the partnership. And on that note, I'd like to pass you over now to Kev and Doug, who will say a bit more about the work of the charity and introduce the rationale for co-creating a Father Inclusive Practice Toolkit. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna, and hello everyone. Thanks for joining us. Can we have the next slide, please, Anna? Is that all right? That's great. We launched North East Young Dads and Lads in 2017, following a year-long pilot project working with young dads, which I delivered on behalf of a Gateshead-based young women's charity. At the time, there was little or no support and kind of blueprint really for this type of work, which really is kind of the main central point for the rationale for developing a toolkit. So we initially kind of focused on one-to-one support for young dads in the Tyne and Wear borough of Gateshead, drawing on our youth and community work skills, strength-based approach, and a voluntary working relationship with young dads, which enabled young men to choose or decline our services without fear of ramifications or repercussions. Delivered in person and sometimes over an extended time frame, averaging at the moment 52.5 hours contact time per person per year. This one-to-one support responded to the self-identified needs of young dads, which often included help to complete essential paperwork, debt and poverty issues, NEET status, mental health challenges, parenting and relationship skills, help to attend and contribute to children's social care proceedings, help to establish or negotiate improved contact with their children, sometimes through courts, and issues around loneliness and isolation. A few months into the launch of Needle, we decided to do more, recognising the sense of isolation and loneliness that most young men felt. Often, the young men we kind of met described issues around a widening gap from their former peer support groups and friendship groups, either due to money, change in responsibilities, or in some cases, young dads being self-motivated to distance themselves from problematic peers. So initially meeting in the kitchen of a community centre with an offer of oven-ready pizzas, door-to-door pickups, and even Monopoly games. The work this group went on to do laid the foundations for what Needle would become. The vast majority of the young dads going on to become community beekeepers, allotment holders, community cycling group leaders, peer mentors, peer educators, filmmakers, podcasters, gaming moderators, peer researchers, and eventually employees of the charity. At the moment, 43% of our workforce are former young dads and lived with lived expertise of young fatherhood. And our ambition is to kind of grow this to at least half in the next year. I'm extremely proud to say that two of the dads who were part of this original founding young dads group, Robert and Jordan, who you'll hear from shortly, have played a huge part in the development of this toolkit as peer researchers, content creators, and co-authors. I'm going to hand on to Doug now to give you a bit of an oversight of our kind of wider work. Thanks, Doug.
Thank you, Kevin. And hello, everybody. Thank you for attending today. Yes, I just want to expand a little bit on that, Kevin, kind of where we are now. As Kevin mentioned, we started off as a Gateshead-based service that within that one local authority. But now we work into 8 local authorities across the North East region. So that kind of identifies there's a need for that support in the areas of the North East. And from that, one of the things I want to talk about is kind of our vision and our mission for what we want to do. And we came up with a set of statements that tries to encapsulate the work that we do and what we want to achieve. As our vision is for young dads to be valued and supported in their role as parents. And our mission is to enable young dads to play a safe and meaningful role in their children's life by supporting, connecting young dads and influencing practice. And that's why we're here today.
Signing up to things.
And from that, our work really has diversified. We've still done one befriend and support, but we also looked, as Anna was talked about when we first got in, talking together about how we can increase our reach digitally, because a lot of the young men that we're working with, and of course the young men, the young dads we work with, at front and center of everything we do, and they drive how this service works. We're talking about how they connect online and where they get their information. And that's where our DigiDad e-learning platform then started to come on and born from that. And please go and have a look at it, because there's a number of parenting videos. There's lots of information that the young dads said that wasn't out there for them, and where they could go to get it. So all of those videos, all of that information on our YouTube channel, on our DigiDad channel, is a co-creation with the young dads and young dads and lads service to make sure that those young men could access those kind of support and help.
Can I just pause you there? Doug, so sorry. Can someone please turn their microphone off? I might have to mute all to be able to do it, and then ask Doug to put his back on. Thank you. It just really affects the quality of the recording, and we can't hear very well. I'm just going to mute all, and then Doug, if you could unmute yourself. So sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Right, I've unmuted myself. Sorry. I'll just quickly go over that. Really, our DigiDad platform is a really interesting concept about, supporting young dads online as well as that one-to-one support, the peer group, all the different things that Kev talked about us getting involved with. But as we evolve and as young people and young men look for information, I think this is a really interesting one that can have a lot of benefits. And on there, we have a number of programs that help young men on there, with children 0 to 6 months, 6 to 12. There's lots of information on the perinatal part about children's social care, things that young men have said to us, we're really interested in this and we don't know where to get that information, we don't know what to do. We can do that with them and co-create it in a way that is young dad friendly and speaks to them as well. And it's authentic because it's, it's done by young men. All the voices, all the people that you see are dads that have been involved with the service in the Northeast. So I encourage people to have a look at that. And I hope that you enjoy the rest of the session, get something from it. It's really interesting. Thank you. I'll hand back to Anna.
Thank you so much, Doug. Thank you. Please do add your questions about what Doug and Kev have said in the chat. I'm sure they'll be very happy to ask or respond to questions about DigiDad as well, which, as someone's pointed out, sounds excellent. And I can assure you it really is. And again, it's a really unique, exciting proposition for the sharing of information about parenting for young dads, but also, again, a really useful resource for professionals as well, to be able to hear the voices and see really positive images of young fathers. So do pop some questions in the chat there if you'd like anyone from the North East Young Dads and Lads to respond to those. Okay, we're going to hear from Rob and Jordan next about their experiences of co-creating the toolkit.
Hi everyone, thanks for coming again. I think it's incredible how many have actually joined. Me and Jordan, we're going to introduce ourselves. My name's Rob. I'm one of the peer enablers for North East Young Dads and Lads, and I have been since I think May last year. But before that, as Kevin and Doug have mentioned, we were pretty much there from the beginning, from 2017, working with sort of Kev individually, but then moving on to a lot of group work, and then it got on to sort of it got to a point where we would meet up weekly with other young dads. At a point where, for me personally, I thought I'd never be in a position like this where I'd be with like-minded young fathers because I seriously didn't think they existed. So that's me, and that's how I got involved with Needle. I was working full time at that moment, and Kev, I reached out to Kev through finding out that he was about through Gates of Carers, really. But yeah, that's me for now. Jordan.
Yeah. So my name's Jordan. I work alongside Rob as a PR enabler and PR researcher. I've pretty much been a part of the charity since the back end of 2015, before it was a main charity. I kind of got involved from the Young Women's Outreach Project, as I just kept bugging my partner at the time, as there was no support for me. And I just needed some help or someone to talk to about being a young dad, needing help. And then they sent over Kevin Studley's phone number. And once we got in touch, like Rob said, I managed to get in touch with him, and it kind of just started off a group thing, and it just got bigger and bigger. And now I call it like my second family, as it's just, I can just message any one of the lads and they're just there. Doesn't have to be constant, doesn't have to be, you're not forced to be there, but they're there for you whenever you need help or experiencing other things. And the main reason I joined was because I needed help getting contact for my daughter through the court system, which Kevin, being an angel, kind of guided me through the path to get that. And here I am now, helping other dads on their journey to be better dads.
Yeah, Jordan said it way better than I did there, actually. That's perfect. Yeah, that's exactly my thought process as well, which is why we were excited when we're asked to participate and meeting other young dads across the country, essentially trying to get some insight from their own experiences, which we've managed to put a lot of that into the toolkit itself. But what I want to do actually is just from a recording that I did over a few minutes, I just want to read a small extract of why I think of what father inclusive practice means to me. So I'll just start with that. So let's start with the most important talking point when we are asked this question, the young fathers themselves. I think it's extremely important that their involvement from the very beginning is recognised and its absolute fullest from all angles. When it comes to supporting them through parenthood, as this is without a doubt one of the proudest moments of their lives, but can also be the scariest. As you can imagine, some of the potential thoughts going through their heads at that moment in time, becoming a dad, you know, am I going to be good enough? Will I be able to provide for my family? And I hope I don't let anyone down. This small extract is a good example of sort of the insight that I've gained from talking to these young dads across the country through smaller focus groups that me and Jordan have sat through together, and then also hearing from the professionals themselves in separate interviews. And it's just interesting to see similarities, but also different perspectives from the professionals that we talk to from their respective fields. So yeah, I mean, in terms of the toolkit itself, being able to again have that opportunity to be able to co-create that with Jordan and everybody else in the team, Anna and Laura, which Laura's helped out a lot. Thank you, Laura, for that. Being able to meet up with us and just talk about things. It's certainly given us a unique perspective coming from being young dads ourselves and going through the service that Needle's been able to offer, and now being on the other end of that, being able to, you know, do the same as what they've done for us. It's really nice. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to speak a little bit on why like the toolkit is needed. And in my kind of experience going from me, I would say it shouldn't really be needed. It should just be a simple case of just asking a question. And as you all know, it takes two to make a baby. So it's not just a one-sided parenthood for every type of parent out there. But the one thing we realized is dads aren't getting asked the same questions as mom. They're not getting the same support. when I first became a dad, I didn't get any tips on like holding the baby, how to be a good father, and like basically just any basic baby needs I never knew anything of. So with this, like the whole point of this toolkit is to help dads who don't have that and try and give them a bit more experience in it before they do start their journey as a dad.
Wonderful, thank you both. And as always, you always say things way better than I can, and I think that's a real testament to you. The ethos really again of the toolkit is put something down in a digital format that reflects this approach to working, and again that really does centre and foreground as experts by experience, as I mentioned earlier. I would just say that, you know, there's some of the things that these young men are talking about, and not just specific to young men but to fathers more generally as well. Becoming a parent for the first time for anyone is a really big deal, and it can be an unsettling period of time as well. So everything that we've developed in the toolkit, I think, really speaks to a broad set of experiences, albeit driven by the voices of young fathers. Now, this screen is actually your first sneak peek at the toolkit, what it looks like, and what kind of content and resources we've included in there. But before we give you a chance to have a little play and to have a little look at it, I'm just going to talk through some of the key features that we've built in, and that we've thought about as we've gone through this co-creation process in order to develop what's a really beautiful output, I think, and a resource that we're really proud of. So we have got the voices of young fathers built throughout, and there are quotes in written form that have come from our research and come from our conversations with the young dads from the North East Young Dads and Lads, that really help to illustrate, I think, some of the points for practice that we're trying to make, and again really showcase and demonstrate you know, just how much we can learn for practice from listening to dads, and giving them space for an authentic voice. I'm getting distracted by the comments in the chat, so I'll carry on and then we'll come to those later. So as well as the quotes from the dads, there's also lots of different features here as well. So we've got these conversations. I might have jumped ahead of my slides slightly. Can I just go back and check? Sorry, no, I haven't. It's fine. We've got some must-dos for practice, and also some conversations between professionals and young dads. So these are, again, interactive features that you can access via QR codes and via links throughout the toolkit. And again, if I just move on to the next screen, you can see an example of that there. So it is very much about telling the stories of young fathers throughout the toolkit, but we do provide sort of more tailored information and advice for professionals based on our engagement with different professionals out there in the field. But essentially, what we try to do is, well, we recognise that, you know, making change to practice in the current context is really challenging. So our suggestions are more about the small changes that can be made that actually have huge impacts on fathers in the longer term and in terms of their parenting journey. So we try and get that balance right in the toolkit. What we're also trying to promote really is a strengths-based approach to professional practice and support for fathers. So one that's about you know, listening to young fathers or listening to fathers about some of the challenges they're navigating, asking about dads, seeing, you know, asking mums about dads, collecting data about dads as well, so that you have a clear, full picture of the whole family, and open up opportunities to invite dads more effectively into the work. What we're trying to do essentially is kind of promote this kind of caring, compassionate approach to support for fathers. So we have the must-dos checklist for dads, which you'll see when you look at the toolkit, and you can interact with that and you can tick the boxes and think about what you already do. To use the language of the Fatherhood Institute, this enables you to do a bit of an audit, if you like, of your own practice and of your services practice, and also to take a bit of a temperature check from this point onwards as well about whether you think you're achieving father inclusive practice in your current approaches. The conversations between professionals and young dads, they are podcasts. We have the Think Dad podcast, and I'll show you an image of that in a moment. But again, these are conversations between Robert and Jordan and champions for father inclusive practice in a range of different multi-agency services that might come into contact with fathers through their practice. So again, you know, there's things beyond the toolkit that you can engage with and access. We've also got some interactive elements in terms of space for reflection as well. So again, we really encourage you to type into the boxes on the toolkit and to use that again as a form of temperature check for your current practice. Again, we're sort of really keen that that developments in father inclusive practice are driven by those of you who are doing this in your everyday lives. And again, we encourage some feedback on this as well later on. And we'll talk to you a bit about what we're going to ask you to do and once you've engaged with the toolkit, once you've had a look. But as I say, there's QR codes there that take you to YouTube and to all sorts of lovely content about young fathers. So this is just the logo for the Think Dad podcast here. And again, we'll share a link to that through the toolkit, and we can pop that in the chat as well. Again, these are really quite profound, I think. You know, it's about opening up that conversation and creating a space for a conversation. I think very often in everyday lives, you know, we don't necessarily have the conversations we need to have to help encourage people and to understand what it is we're doing and why we're doing it. A lot of the young dads we've researched with and that we've worked with, they struggle with confidence, and they may come into a professional interaction with some fear and trepidation about what might happen. So these conversations are really about breaking down some of those barriers between young fathers and professionals as a way of moving productively forward to affect change. We also share some good practice examples as well. So these are kind of based on our existing knowledge of some of the great work that's going on out there nationally. So we've got Dads Matters there, we've got Dads Rock up in Edinburgh, and also the Young Dads Collective, which is a model that I've been working to develop in Grimsby through co-creation methodology. And again, there are links to young men talking about their experiences, talking about some of the challenges they navigate, just to provide some sort of depth context to the kinds of things you might have to think about when engaging with fathers. As I mentioned, we also have developed kind of or thought about what we mean by father inclusive practice through the development and the co-creation of the toolkit. And these are just some quotes taken from the toolkit, again, about what we think is meant by that. So, you know, being dedicated to being inclusive of the whole family, caring and compassionate. We have a whole page on practices of sidelining and surveillance, which is concepts that have been developed through the Following Young Fathers research that Bren Neal at the University of Leeds led. So these are practices of either excluding and ignoring dads in professional contexts and or taking a highly risk-based approach. Again, what we encourage is that you know, even if there are challenges where men are being problematic in their relationships, we still need to engage with them in the research and in the support context. So again, this just provides, I think, a language for some of the ways in which different professional support offers might operate and might work to affect men in particular ways. A lot of it's about enthusiasm and empathy, and it's about quality of character, really, I would say, in professional relationships, and again, all of which are about establishing trust with young men and with fathers, being non-judgmental, but also recognizing that this is about celebrating fatherhood. It's about celebrating dads and all the diversity, but also the broader societal benefits and the benefits for children and women too. So that's kind of where we're at in terms of our definition of father inclusivity as it currently stands.